I'm here today to talk about politics. I've been putting this off for a while because I know politics can get pretty heated, and people can lose friends over politics and whatnot. It used to be we could agree to disagree and get along more, and people started attacking each other's parties and candidates. I think it started in the '80s with Rush Limbaugh, who basically turned political debate into an insult fest or bumper sticker slogan fest. And then the left cut on that, hey, we could do the same thing. And then, Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart and those guys turned political discourse into who could belittle someone else's beliefs the best. You disagree with me on this issue? You must be a moron. I'm going to make you look foolish. Anyway, but we're still like that, unfortunately, today. We can't agree to disagree or, have civil debates. Having said that, I am going to explain why I am supporting Gary Johnson for president. Gary Johnson is the Libertarian candidate for president. He was a two-term governor of New Mexico, so he has executive branch experience, he has political experience. He's not a newcomer. But I've been a Libertarian even before I became a Johnson supporter. Why am I a Libertarian? Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Well, first of all, there's a lot of misinformation about Libertarians out there. Democrats think Libertarians are a bunch of nut job anarchists, and Republicans think Libertarians are a bunch of pot-smoking hippies. Well, if you want to find out what Libertarians are, go to the Libertarian website, lp.org, or go to Cato Institute website. It's a Libertarian-leaning think tank. If you're really interested in learning about the Democrat Party, would you go ask a Trump supporter what Democrats believe? Or if you were interested in learning about the Republican Party, would you ask a Hillary Clinton supporter what Republicans believe? So if you want to find out what Libertarians believe, ask a Libertarian. Go to Libertarian website. Libertarians are not anarchists. If we were, we'd be members of the Anarchy Party, which I don't even know if there is one. We believe in limited government, that the main role of government is to protect life, liberty, and property, to ensure that we have these protections in a court system, and that the government's job is to defend our rights. It's not the government's job to go prancing around the world, being the world's police, getting involved in other countries' civil wars. It's not the government's job to tell us what to eat, what to smoke, who to marry, when to do this, when to do that. Okay, protect life, liberty, and property. And on a national level, Libertarians, there's a wide array of Libertarians. There are some that are pretty much neo-anarchist, but the majority believe what the LP believes, the Libertarian Party believes, which you can find at the Libertarian Party website. The main reason I am a Libertarian, though, are for two issues. For the past 15 years, we have been at constant war. And I don't care what anybody says, we are still at war in Afghanistan. Major combat operations have stopped, but our soldiers are still going out with body armor on, assisting combat troops, the Afghanistan combat troops, in fighting. We've been 15 years. That's 3 times longer than we were in World War II. Think about that. Why are we still in Afghanistan? We were attacked by Al-Qaeda on 9/11. Okay, we go to Afghanistan. Within a year, we've routed the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda has pretty much got kicked out. 14 years later, we're still there. Why? Because we are trying to build a country. There's a civil war in Afghanistan between the Taliban and the Afghan government, and we are supporting the Afghan government. Okay, first of all, the Taliban has never attacked the United States. The very second we leave Afghanistan, the Taliban is no longer our enemy. They don't want to come to the United States. They just want us out of Afghanistan. That's why they attack us in Afghanistan, but we're still there. Now, the Obama supporters will say, well, he has to clean up all this mess. 7 years. Eisenhower ended the Korean War in 6 months. North Korea invades South Korea. We go make sure South Korea is protected. We drive the North Koreans up to the Chinese border. You can argue about Truman and MacArthur and all that, but Ike comes in and ends it in 6 months. And now South Korea is still free. It's still a democracy. Yes, we're not very good terms with North Korea. We're still technically at war with them since we never signed a peace treaty. But was our goal to unify the Koreas, or was it to protect South Korea? If it was to protect South Korea, we did it, and Ike ended the war in 6 months. So do not tell me it takes over 7 years to end a war. In fact, President Obama will not end the Afghan war. He's going to pass it on to whoever comes after him. Okay, look at Iraq. He comes into office saying he's going to end the Iraq war. And so what happens? He follows Bush's status of forces agreements that Bush had signed with the Iraqis to the letter. And then he does try to negotiate to keep our forces there later, or longer rather, but the Iraqis want U.S. soldiers to be tried in Iraqi court if they break Iraqi law, and Obama said no, so he pulls our soldiers out. Hooray, everybody's happy, but guess what? A civil war breaks out, he sends U.S. soldiers back. That's right. So now there are 2 civil wars U.S. soldiers are involved in. And if that wasn't bad enough, we are now in Syria. Combat troops, boots on the ground in Syria. Remember when we said there weren't going to be boots on the ground in Syria? What's going on in Syria? There's a 3-way civil war. ISIS, the rebels, and the government. And we are supporting the rebels. So we are now involved in 3 foreign countries' civil wars. We're basically unpaid mercenaries. You know, it's ridiculous. 3 wars. And we just sent troops to Yemen this past year. Did you know that? That we now have troops in Yemen? Yes, it's only a couple hundred, but isn't that how it always starts? You know, we have 8,000 troops in Afghanistan, 5,000 in Iraq. I don't know how many in Syria. Now we're in Yemen. That's why I refuse to vote Democrat and I refuse to vote GOP. That's the main reason, because I am anti-war. I want our troops home now. How many troops have died over the past 15 years under both Bush and Obama? In Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria. Too many. And then how much money do we spend over there? Like $4 million an hour, every hour in Afghanistan. Think about that for a second. 20 veterans in this country every day take their own lives. Think about what $4 million an hour could do for veterans and for veterans' mental health or their physical health in the VA. How screwed up the VA is. Yeah, the best way to help veterans, stop creating more veterans. You know, I'm not going to die without there being still veterans of a foreign war. When my son is 80, I don't want there to be any more veterans of foreign wars left in this country, because I want us out of foreign wars. Yes, if we're attacked, defend ourselves. If one of our NATO allies are attacked, let's go defend them. But why do we have to be the world's police? Why do we have to solve the civil war in Afghanistan, the civil war in Iraq, the civil war in Syria, the civil war in Yemen, yada, yada, yada? So the main reason I vote Libertarian is because I am anti-war and I will not compromise on that. Now let's look at the candidate stance. Donald Trump says, quote, I'm the most militaristic person ever. Yeah, I don't want him to be my commander-in-chief. Yes, I know he said the Iraq war was wrong, and he's right on that. But I don't want someone to be my commander-in-chief who says he's the most militaristic person ever. Let's look at Hillary Clinton. Has she ever met a war she didn't like? Has she ever met a military excursion she didn't support? Iraq war, supports. Afghanistan war, 15 years and going on, supports. Syria intervention, supports. Sending troops to Yemen, supports. So we basically had the 2 most militaristic candidates in history running for president. Unless you count Curtis LeMay, we're not going to go there. All right. So, second reason I refuse to vote GOP or Democrat, civil liberties. Both parties gave us the Patriot Act. Patriot Act, I use very loosely. Both parties support the NDAA, which for the first time in U.S. history gives the government the right to detain citizens without due process, without a trial, indefinitely. Supported by both Democrats and Republicans and signed into law by President Obama. Hillary Clinton supports that. I am not sure about Donald Trump, considering he wants to basically spy on anybody who comes to this country and like follow them around and track them and whatnot. I'm sure he's not the most pro-civil liberties guy in the world. So, 2 reasons I vote Libertarian. I'm anti-war, I am pro-civil liberties, and I will not compromise on those issues. Even if the candidate I was voting for was only going to get 2 votes, mine and his, I would still vote for him if he was anti-war and pro-civil liberties. Now, what about the people who say, Gary Johnson can't win? Weren't those the same people who said Donald Trump couldn't get the GOP nomination? Weren't those the same people who said, Bernie Sanders won't amount to much. He'll probably get 1 or 2% of the vote, but he's going to be a non-factor. Yeah. Speaking of Bernie Sanders, if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, did you know the Democrat Party was not impartial during the primaries? They actively tried to help Hillary Clinton and sabotage Bernie Sanders, and those same party officials are still in charge of the party. That's right. Do you really want to support a party that tried to sabotage your candidate and doesn't take it seriously enough to fire anybody over it? You really think they're going to stick to Bernie's principles once the election is over and their guy or lady wins? So I would encourage you to vote for Jill Stein. Jill Stein, even though I disagree with her a lot on economic issues, I would vote for her over Clinton and Trump, simply because she is also anti-war and pro-civil liberties. So there are 4 candidates running for president. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You got Clinton, Trump, Johnson, and Stein. And if everybody votes their conscience, not their fears, third party can win. Third party will win. I know people would say, well, if you vote for this candidate, you'll just take votes from another candidate. No, that's not the way it works. You vote for the candidate of your choice. The candidate who gets the most votes in electoral college wins. No one's going to put a gun to someone's head and say, you have to vote for this candidate. Well, if they do, it's illegal. So Al Gore did not lose the election because of Ralph Nader. If Al Gore could have talked those Nader voters into supporting him, he could have won. He lost his home state of Tennessee. I mean, come on. If Ross Perot did not cost George Bush the election, Ross Perot didn't put a gun in anybody's head and say, hey, don't vote for George Bush, vote for me. No, they chose by their own free will to vote for Ross Perot. George Bush could not convince them to vote for him, and that's his fault. It's not Ross Perot's fault. There's only one. George Bush has no one to blame but himself for losing that election in 1992. Al Gore has no one to blame but himself for losing that election in 2000. Don't blame third-party candidates. It's ridiculous. Vote your conscience, not your fears. Vote for the candidate you agree with the most. If we all do that, we will really shake up the system. The two-party system has failed us. The last 15 years have proven that. The last 15 years of constant war have proven that. The last 15 years of eroding civil liberties has proven that. So, hopefully you will join me in voting third party. I'm supporting Gary Johnson, but you can also vote for Jill Stein if you're more liberal on economic issues. You can support her, but if you're libertarian like me on economic issues, support Gary Johnson. So, hopefully you took to heart what I said, and if you have any comments, please make them civilly in the comments section. And if you like these videos, like, subscribe, share, shout them from the rooftops, make copies on DVD and pass them out to your neighbors or whatnot. Anyway, vote your conscience, not your fears. Have a good day.